All right, welcome back to Let's Talk Gratitude. My name is Christian, and here on Let's Talk Gratitude, I like to talk about great stories in movies, TV, and video games. And today, we're going to step away from pro wrestling for a little bit and go back into a great story within a video game. Today, we're going to be talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and its expansion, Phantom Liberty. So first, I want to talk about just a bit of background that I've had with the game. So the game came out in 2020. Somebody bought me Cyberpunk 2077 when it first came out back in 2020, but I was literally unable to play the game. So this was all the controversy surrounding Cyberpunk, that it was kind of unplayable and very glitchy and all that. I was unable to play the game because I literally couldn't get past the start screen without it crashing. So for the last 3 years, I've just never played Cyberpunk until Phantom Liberty came out, and there was a lot of fanfare behind it, and a lot of people really loved it. So I decided to buy the bundle, get Cyberpunk 2077, and the expansion Phantom Liberty. And last week, just finished playing the entire game, and here I am wanting to talk about it. So first, let's talk about just what this story is about. Let's talk about the main story first before we get into the expansion story. Cyberpunk 2077 follows a mercenary character named either Vincent or Valerie, depending on whether you want to play a guy or a girl. Both characters go by V for short. You start out with three different origins. You can be a nomad that survives out in the desert. You can be a street kid that's just a street tough thug roaming the streets. Or you can be a corpo, a corporate worker activist that's just rising the ranks within one of the bigger corporations within the setting of the game called Night City. Uh, the story takes you to a heist. Eventually, you lose whatever origin you have and just straight up become a mercenary, which takes you to a heist to infiltrate Arasaka Tower and steal a piece of high tech equipment. The heist goes bad, goes really wrong. One of your friends is offed during the process, during the heist, and you, the character V, have to try and save this damaged relic by inserting it into your head. You then later find out that this relic has a digital construct named Johnny Silverhand inside, or that the relic's made of, and Johnny Silverhand tries to take over your mind, take over your body, and this relic that is now infused with your brain is now threatening your life. So that, and the rest of the story goes is essentially the journey of you trying to separate your mind, your body from this relic, from Johnny Silverhand, and be free. So Phantom Liberty's plot is an extension of the main Cyberpunk 2077 plot. V is still looking for a way to separate him or herself from Johnny Silverhand, and a new character is introduced with the expansion called, her name is Songbird. Songbird says that she can find it, or she has a cure for V, but she's gonna need her help. So Songbird gets her into Dogtown. Songbird then says that you need to meet me and the president of the new United States. That's the U.S. government, essentially. Um, and as you go into, chaos ensues. The president's plane gets taken down, and you are sent on a quest to save the president. Songbird, during this process, goes missing, and you save the president. The president then hires you on as now essentially an agent of the United States government, and needs your help to rescue Songbird. And essentially, the whole entire plot of Phantom Liberty is a spy thriller to try and save Songbird's life, with a ton of twists and turns along the way. So you find out throughout the entire process that Songbird is at the end of it, lying to you to try and get away from the United States government herself. She used you as a means to an end. And it's a really tragic story, really compelling story. I think the Phantom Liberty plot is, the story is better than the main Cyberpunk story, but also I think the Phantom Liberty story also just serves to elevate the Cyberpunk story better than what it was originally. Um, I think the characters within the Phantom Liberty story um, are incredibly compelling, especially the two main ones, Songbird, or Somi is her real name, and Solomon Reed, Songbird's mentor, who is played by Idris Elba. Um, so those are the two plots of the main story of Cyberpunk 2077 and the Phantom Liberty expansion. So why do I like this game? Well, I think this game does two things better than most games that I play. And I'm going to be talking about this game just from the perspective of the playthrough that I had with my V. I played a Corpo female V and chose to destroy Arasaka Tower and allow Johnny Silverhand to sacrifice himself so that I can get whatever time that I had left um, uh, uh, to live out the rest of my life. So I think this game does two things better than most games. The first thing is I think the way that it builds relationships with its main companion characters is absolutely incredible. Um, Specifically with V and Johnny Silverhand. So like I said before, Johnny is this construct that's trying to take over your mind, and in doing so is actively killing V. Um, but so you obviously start out this relationship with V and Johnny hating each other, but throughout the entirety of the story between Phantom Liberty and the Cyberpunk main game, um, you can take actions to either continually hate Johnny and do nothing he says and don't listen to him and just berate him and make fun of him and all that, or you can try to build a relationship with him. And I don't think throughout by the end of the game you ever get to a place where Johnny and V can call themselves like good friends or anything like that. I don't think they like have that kind of love for each other. But I think there is a well earned, there can be, depending on the intentional choices you make, can be a well earned respect that both Johnny and V have for each other. That's very compelling. Um, and depending on how you play your V, right, these two characters can be very different from each other. Johnny is the typical like rockstar punk, is very against corporations, uh, is very against corporate greed, and wants people to live their lives as they see fit, as free as they want to. Um, and the way I played my V was that they were similar but different, right? My V was a corpo, was a corporate agent, right? So that's obviously a very big difference from Johnny. Johnny Silverhand would never, would never sell himself out to a corporation. But my V did. Wanted to climb the ladder, wanted to get ahead, but eventually was kicked out. And in being kicked out, had aggression, had some ill will towards the corporation, just like Johnny. And so with that, they had some common cause. They had reasons to dislike the corporations, and they built a relationship on that common thread. Um, One of the most compelling parts of the relationship between Johnny and V is when you go to Johnny's gravesite, right? So Johnny Silverhand used to be alive, but now he's dead and he's just a digital construct. So you go to the final resting place of Johnny Silverhand's actual body, and you have this really interesting conversation with Johnny, where Johnny essentially says that at the end of whatever journey they're on, if Johnny has to be the one to sacrifice himself so that V can keep his body, uh, that he would do it. And my V, I think just going off the emotion, and for me personally, going off the emotion, there was an option that said, "Well, if there's a way to give you back the body, I'll give it to you instead." Um, I think including that option of V getting to the point where like there's so much respect and so much sympathy even for Johnny and his journey, that V would even be be willing at all to give up their or her body for Johnny. I think that's a compelling choice to make, and I really enjoyed watching these two bond over the course of whatever 50 hours uh, played was. Um, so yeah, that's the first relationship I thought was really good. The second one is the first relationship that were shown within the game between V and their friend Jackie Wells. So at the beginning, during the origins, during the prologues section of the game, whatever origin you choose, you are always connected with this character named Jackie. Uh, he is this very lovable, affable street guy that has a bunch of connections, and essentially, whenever you're kicked out of your origin part, whenever you're kicked out of the corporations, if you're kicked out of your nomad tribe, if you're kicked out of whatever street gang or that you're a part of, Jackie is there to lend a hand and help you pick up the pieces after your life falls apart. Um, and I really love this best friend, this ride or die kind of character that Jackie Wells is. That like he's just there no matter what. He's your friend there to help you, make you laugh, help you pick yourself back up. And he was a real bright spot uh, uh, in the game up until the heist, which goes wrong, and Jackie is the friend that dies during the heist. Um, and what's so interesting is after Jackie dies during the heist, there's an opportunity to do a memorial service for him at his mom's bar, and you can get a bunch of his friends from either his former gang, his at the time girlfriend. Um, her name was Misty. They all show up, and you just get to hear a bunch of people talk really kindly about this guy's life and how he impacted all these people. And it was really cool to watch a character that dies within the first 4 to 5 hours of the game and see the impact that he had on the community around him, the characters that you come across. Um, and you yourself get to make a speech too, which I thought was really cool. That V gets to go up and say something, and you get to choose all the dialogue options for it. So I thought that relationship was really well done, and was a really enjoyable part of the game for the time that we had it at the beginning of the game. All right, so the next relationship that the game does really well that I want to talk about is Pan Am and the Aldecados. So the Aldecados are a group that reminds me a lot of the crew from The Walking Dead, just a ragtag small group that's trying to survive in the wilderness. Pan Am is the doorway into the Aldecados. She's one of the big four romanceable companions for either V's. Um, uh, and Pan Am is this incredibly brash and confident, overconfident at times, but she's also incredibly ambitious and a visionary for the Aldecados. She wants what's best for them. She wants to see them grow and see them thrive out in the Badlands. Um, and what I like about the relationship between Pan Am and V is that V can often end up being the guardrails for Pan Am when she goes off the deep end and gets herself into trouble. In fact, the first time that V and Pan Am meet each other is when you have to help Pan Am get a car back from a job that went wrong. Uh, and the whole Avocados storyline, the building a relationship with this group, with each uh, smaller member of the Aldecados tribe, was probably one of my favorite parts of the game. Um, Particularly towards the end of the game, when you decide who you want to storm Arasaka Tower with as like the big final battle. I chose to go with the Avocados to go into battle with them, and the entire time of like kind of having a final celebration with the group the night before the battle. um, to getting a jacket that makes you a part of the Autocados group. They accept you into their tight knit family after doing a ton of different side jobs with them, after doing a ton of different rescue missions, helping people out. They accept you as one of their own, and then you all storm into battle together. It was one of the best parts of this game for me personally. Was that. Next is Carrie Eurodyne. Carrie is the part of Johnny Silverhand's band. When Silverhand was alive, he was the front man for a band called Samurai. Carrie was a part of that band too. He was the guitarist and backup singer for Johnny. Carrie's story. He is the typical like rock star, like rock superstar, rich guy, doesn't care about anything. But what's interesting about Carrie's story is when you meet him, he is haunted by the shadow, the specter, the task of filling the shoe of feeling like he has to fill the shoes of Johnny Silverhand, of this legendary personality that was Johnny. And I really enjoyed watching Johnny from within V's mind, try to and successfully get Carrie to see he does not have to live in Johnny's shadow. He does not have to try and live up to Johnny. Right? Carrie is fine just being Carrie. And that entire journey was a real treat in building that relationship with Carrie, building the relationship with the other band members, and then allowing Johnny Silverhand within your mind take over your body briefly to put on one last samurai show with his former bandmates was a really cool moment within the game. And I thought Carrie was a really cool character all around. So that's the relationship building portion that I thought the game did really, really well. And there's a bunch of other characters that you build relationships with that I think the game, Cyberpunk just, I think as a whole, understood the heart of companionship, of building relationships with people. Because even in Phantom Liberty, building a relationship with Songbird, right? There's my V saw the situation as, yes, I'm being lied to, yes, Songbird's using me, but I want to at least help her get out of this terrible situation, because even though I'm still trapped, both of us don't have to be trapped together. I thought that sort of path, that sort of heart of the game was really, really well done. The next thing I think this game does really, really well, and better than most sci-fi games that I've played, I should say, is setting up a very plausible and very realistic possible outcome for like our real world future. All right, so Cyberpunk is a world that is totally reliant on the internet and integrated with like they've integrated technology into their own bodies. So a good way to describe this is if you've played Mass Effect 1, the main antagonist of that game, Saren, his whole deal is he believes that organics, humanity, are better off not like living side by side with synthetics, with robotics and things like that, but should actually integrate all the robotics, all the synthetic technology into their bodies, into their minds, into their entire. They should incorporate that within their entire humanity. Cyberpunk 2077, I think, really realizes that entire vision that Saren had to the most extreme. So if you think about Elon Musk's Neuralink that he's trying to build, right? Cyberpunk essentially fulfills that dream that Elon has, right? So you have the internet totally locked in or totally integrated into your mind. You have a supercomputer in your mind. You have a cell phone in your mind, and the only thing I think that's not realistic within Cyberpunk are obviously the weaponry, and some of the different like augmentations may not be totally realistic. But The integrating technology within like the human body and within the mind, I think, is absolutely something that is plausible for our reality. Um, I think it's also something that's a little scary, right? Because if it's a plausible reality, I would say that the cyberpunk world, Night City in general, and the cyberpunk world as a whole, isn't exactly the most pleasant place to live in. Um, right? You think that having all that technology integrated within yourself would make life easier, and in some ways it does, but it also makes life a lot scarier, right? AIs are a thing that exist within the cyberpunk world, and there's a whole lore bit of we had to lock off these rogue AIs that were wrecking the world behind this like cyber wall. And if they ever break out, like it could just again wreak havoc over the world and Armageddon can start and all that. Um, Again, these are like real things that in 2024 we're talking about. A neural link that can link us up to the internet and link us up to cyberspace. AI is becoming more ubiquitous within our world. Um, so I think Cyberpunk does a really, really good job of being a futuristic world that like could actually be plausible in the not too distant future. So those are the two things that I think Cyberpunk does really, really well, better than most games: relationship building and the plausible sci-fi world. Other things that I liked about the game, though, the antagonist. So there's not really uh, named antagonists that like you out and out hate, right? So they give you a named antagonist, let's say, a fella by the name of Yorinobu Arasaka. He's the younger son of the CEO of the Arasaka company, and he gains power of the company by killing his father. Um, so technically, you could say he's the main bad guy of the game. However, I would say that rather than it being one singular person, that the game actually presents uh, ideas and the idea of like corporations, corporate greed, and all bannered under this one corporation, specifically Arasaka, as the bad guys. And there's certainly individuals that, like I said, Yorinobu being one, Adam Smasher being another bad guy that's kind of up in front. And you have reasons to dislike Adam Smasher, right? He's the one who ended Johnny's life. He's the one that if you go to storm Arasaka Tower with Johnny Silverhand's crew instead of going with the Autocados, uh, one of Johnny Silverhand's old exes gets killed by Adam Smasher, and so that's another reason to hate Adam Smasher. Um, so there are individuals that are antagonistic, but I think the game presents more the idea of corporations and corporate greed um, as the antagonist, which is a very punk idea, which makes sense because this game is called Cyberpunk. Um, but I think doing that made it a very compelling, right? Because you don't have one person. If I take out this one guy, then the game's over, right? No, this entire industry, this entire corporation has to come down, which is a lot more complicated than taking out one guy. Um, so the antagonists I thought were really well done. Next, I want to talk about my favorite side quest. So this is the storyline of Joshua Stevenson. Two quests that go with this, that go with Joshua, are called Sinnerman and A Light That Never Goes Away. Um, I really liked this. So let me explain what the side quest is first. So you are tasked. V is tasked with a assassination contract to take out Joshua Stevenson. Um, Joshua is a convicted murderer. Um, he murdered people, right? One of the people he murdered was taking out a contract on Joshua, and V's tasked to go take him out. When you go to get Joshua, um, the person who takes out the contract on Joshua ends up getting taken out first, and Joshua asks you not to end his life, and in fact wants V to follow him throughout the day. And throughout following him, you find out that Joshua, while in prison, had become a born again Christian, and is on the path of trying to redeem himself for the crimes he committed. Um, and what I really like about this story is, um, I think this is probably one of, if not the best, um, depictions and uses of Christianity within a AAA title. Um, because most of the time when Christianity is depicted within AAA titles in particular, it's usually done with like a caricature or a stereotype of what like the typical over the top Christian can be, right? Whereas I think they portray Joshua really well as like a true born again repentant Christian, um, that genuinely wants forgiveness. And they do a good job of this because the first mission, Sinnerman, um, when you go with Joshua, he takes you to the house of a family whose son whose son Joshua took the life of this son, right? And the son's sister writes a letter to Joshua while he's in prison, um, essentially, acting as a prison ministry all unto herself, and changing Joshua's life, changing Joshua's perspective, and turning him to Christ within jail. And so these two become pen pals, and one of the most interesting lines that the sister says, right, because this is a story about forgiveness. Um, the sister says, um, I lost a brother, but God gave me another brother, talking about Joshua. And I thought that was so interesting, right? Because it shows just how powerful forgiveness was for these two individuals. Now, what's also interesting about Sinner Man is when the mother of the son comes back and sees Joshua um, in her home, she gets really, really upset. And Joshua says that he's there to beg her for forgiveness for taking the life of her son. Um, and she says she's just not ready to forgive Joshua, right? And so it shows both sides of, you know, not everything within Christianity is, oh, we just all forgive each other right off the bat because that's what we're supposed to do, right? It's a lot more complicated, especially with like situations like this where lives are taken and people are mourning, and so much anger and resentment is wrapped up in your heart, and it just takes time to find forgiveness if you ever do. Um, but I really enjoyed watching this very real story play out within a video game, and I was not expecting this within Cyberpunk at all. Cyberpunk, the world of Cyberpunk within Night City, is portrayed kind of as a very nihilistic, hopeless society that's more run on like hedonism and live in the moment, get what's yours, and you know just do the best you can with what you've got. Um, Religion's not brought up much at all within the cyberpunk world. So having this as like a part of it was really refreshing, and that it's portrayed really, really well, really, really respectfully, and not as a caricature of anything. Was very, very interesting, and I really appreciate it. Now, the story continues for Joshua, because not everything's hunky dory with Joshua. Not everything's just on the up and up. Um, Joshua is a bit of a zealot, a bit of to the extreme with it, because what his ultimate end goal for this quest line is he wants to get a production company to sell these videos of him actually crucifying himself on a cross like Jesus. Um, and so obviously, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's something someone should do, right? Um, you think of things like the Passion of the Christ, right, where Jim Caviezel was crucified, right? he didn't actually put nails into his wrists and into his feet. That was acted out. That was done up for a movie. Joshua wants to do the real thing so that everybody gets the visceral image of this crucifixion. Um, so obviously that's like way overboard. But before he goes through with this, there's a moment where Joshua is sitting in the dressing room. The director of the film or producer or whatever she is calls V and says, "Hey, Joshua's doing a little rough. He's having trouble. Could you come and talk to him?" And so V goes over to talk to Joshua, and Joshua essentially says that he's anxious about it, he's nervous, and asks V if he or she could pray with them, which is another thing I did not expect at all. And you get a few different options of prayer, right? You can do the Christian Lord's Prayer. They give you some other religious options for prayer, like in other religions, Islam, Buddhism, and things like that. Um, but that moment of like the game giving you the option to do the Lord's Prayer in a AAA title, like blew me away. I didn't expect this Christian story at all within Cyberpunk. I certainly never expected them to do the Lord's Prayer uh, within a AAA title. So that was very refreshing, very surprising. I was happy that it was there. Um, and V is the one who's leading Joshua into that prayer too. So that was really really cool. And as a Christian, I certainly hope that more stories like this are put into games. I remember Todd Howard, who's the head guy at Bethesda, talking about one of the side missions in, or I guess the faction quest lines in Starfield, and the way he was describing one of those these this faction quest line was that like it was done in such a way that he would often flip from atheist back to agnostic because of this story, which I thought was very very interesting, um, and that again another AAA title putting religious themes into the game and doing it in a compelling way. Um, I really appreciate that kind of thing. That was really really cool. So this was my favorite side quest of the game for that reason. Next, I want to talk about the big four romanceable companions. Um, so romance is a part of is an option within the game. Each gendered V, whether you're Vincent or Valerie, gets two companions that they can romance. If you're Vincent, you get Panam or Carrie that you get as an options to romance. If you're Valerie, you get Judy Alvarez and River Ward as options to romance. So I played female Corpo V. And I did both romances for Judy and River, but ended up sticking with Judy. Um, for this reason, Judy is a much more compelling character than Ward. Ward of the four of them, River Ward of the four of them, I think is the weakest by far. He's not a bad character. He's just kind of very bland, um, and you know, he. I wasn't moved by his character much at all. He's a police officer, and he kind of takes on the I've got this one one bad guy I need to catch, and you'll help me. V, you can help me, and we'll fall in love, and yada yada yada. It really wasn't that interesting with River. I've seen all four of them. Panam's and Judy's are, I think, by far the two best. Then Carrie's is right under theirs, and then River Wars is a distant third, distant last place. Um, but as a whole, I didn't think that the romances um, added any like extra layer of uh, interest to V or these other characters. I thought it was I thought it was like a neat part, a neat side part of the game, but I don't think it like really impacted the game as like a whole, which is fine. It was still fun to do all the romances. Next, I want to talk about Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba, who played two characters in this game. Keanu Reeves played Johnny Silverhand. Idris Elba played a character in the Phantom Liberty expansion, Solomon Reed. These two individuals were so good. Were so good in their roles for playing Johnny and playing Solomon. Keanu really brought Johnny to life in such an interesting way, bringing this punk rocker out, this Rage Against the Machine guy. I think Keanu Reeves fit that really, really well. Without also being like too overstated and too in your face about it. Like the monotone, toned down energy of Keanu Reeves really added like this very interesting dichotomy between Johnny. Like he's this toned down guy. You'd figure like someone like Johnny Silverhand, who's the front man for a band's got this massive person, would have this massive personality, would be all up in your face, but he's actually really toned down, kind of monotone, kind of quiet. I thought that was really interesting. Idris Elba for Solomon Reed fits the like James Bond esque super spy to a T. Which is why like it's no surprise that Idris Elba was like one of the candidates for the new 007. And Solomon Reed is a perfect reason why. He just fits it to a T. He exemplifies everything that a super spy should be. This big, super talented, like super athlete. That's just super. That's very intelligent, witty, charismatic. Um, you can tell from just the way he walks is very dangerous. Knows what he's doing. So I thought these uh, two guys who are traditionally known for their roles in like movies fit really well within a video game. And it didn't take me out that like you could like they morphed their faces into the game. That it was Keanu's face on Johnny Silverhand, or that it was Idris Elba's face on Solomon Reed. It didn't take me out of the game like, oh, that's I only see Idris Elba. Like they chameleoned themselves into their roles perfectly, and I thought it was really good. And I think more games should do this only if they've got like people who can do exactly what Keanu and Idris Elba did. I've seen John Bernthal in a couple of games. I think he'd be really good for something like this for a big AAA title. He was in one of the Ghost Recon games. I know it didn't do like traditionally well, but I'd love to see John Bernthal in more of these kinds of roles that Keanu and Idris got. I know Norman Reedus was in Death Stranding, and people praised him for that role. So more celebrities more select celebrities or movie stars in video game roles, I think will only help video games. Of course, not to the detriment of like traditional video game actors. I love guys like Nolan North and ladies like Ashley Birch. I think they're great video game voice actors and video game stars that should always get those roles first. But if we can sprinkle in more of these like movie stars into these video games, I think that'd be really, really cool. All right, so kind of getting to the end of this, uh, just quick. Want to talk about some of my favorite overall characters, because we talked about the big four companions, but there were other side characters that V interacts with that I think deserve a lot of spotlight. So we talked about Songbird a little bit. Loved her espionage. Loved her like cyber nerd, cyber spy persona. She was really, really good. Johnny Silverhand, one of my favorites. There's a character called Goro Takamura. He is a ex Arasaka agent. So I talked about the original CEO, the original leader of Arasaka. Um, Goro worked for him once Saburo Arasaka died, Goro was then also framed and kicked out of Arasaka, and you as V and Goro are trying like go on this path of like trying to find their way back in, and it's more of like the spy thriller stuff, which I really enjoyed. Goro exemplified the like honor system, do things for honor, do things the right way because it's honorable. And I really liked him as a character. And then my last favorite character, just in general for this entire game, was V. I think they did the main character V so well. The art role play options that V had, so that you could choose what kind of character he or she could be. I think they crafted that really, 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 really well, to make V a sympathetic figure throughout the entire game that made you connect with him or her, and also a potentially an inspirational figure for like how he or she managed to overcome a lot of the obstacles in her way, building a lot of the relationships that you do over time. They did a fantastic job with the main character V. So the final verdict for the game, I'll say I wish in 2020 we got the ready to go playable AAA title game that came out in 2023. Because I think if this game, even without the expansion, even without Phantom Liberty, I think this game in 2020 ends up being the best game of that year. And that's a year that you had The Last of Us 2, which I personally didn't like, but I know a lot of people did, or at least didn't mind it, or did like it a lot. I think if this game comes out ready to go in 2020, it ends up being the best game of that year. Um, Unfortunately, 3 years later, getting it right, I do think is a knock against you. Even if you got it right 3 years later, which they did, it's a really, really fun game in 2023 and 2024. But I think it's a knock against you. So, like, if I was doing the generic, out of 10 ranking, I'd give it like a 9.5 out of 10 or a 9. Because those 3 years are just a tick against you. Like, you don't get a pass for that. Like that's a problem that it was not playable right out the gate. But I was super happy that I got to play this game now. Super happy that that the game really made me think. It was interesting on a bunch of different intellectual levels, and I love this game through and through. I don't know that it would crack my top 5, but doesn't take away from just how incredible the game was. If you haven't played it, I think you should give it a shot. Yeah. So if you've stuck around after all my rambling and all my ums, I really appreciate it. If you're new to watching this channel, thank you for watching. If you're returning to watching this channel, thank you for watching also. Do me a favor, hit the like button, comment on this video, and hit the subscribe button to help this channel grow if you believe in what I'm trying to build here. I really appreciate anybody who's clicked on the video, anybody that's made it this far. Man, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.